yourself or a road worker in danger. When driving through construction, LIUNA members ask you for your sake and ours.
Slow down, stay off your phone, please. Be aware where we're at, where the cone zones are at.
Stay off your phones and buckle up and drive safe.
We're not asking for much.
This is Brian Short, Business Manager for the Indiana Laborers District Council. Everyone deserves a safe place to work. Do your part in the cone zone. Slow down, save a life. We're all in this together.
A message from Laborers International Union of North America and affiliated locals.
All right, we are back, and it is time for John Doherty to be here. Good morning, John.
Morning.
Great to have you here.
Good to be here.
Before we get to you, I just want to point out, look, folks, traffic on 8094, as the caller mentioned earlier, is still a nightmare. It's a nightmare going in both directions, from I-65 to Broadway, going westbound, going eastbound. There are slowdowns now all the way into Illinois, probably around Torrance Avenue, and it doesn't get better until you get past Broadway. So if I were you, I'd stay off 8094. I'd jump up and take the toll road instead. It's just a nightmare this morning. You're not going to do much better anyway when you get into Illinois, because the Bishop Ford is a nightmare, and so is the Ryan. So take alternative routes this morning. With that, it is great to have you here, and lots to talk about. So why don't you start off?
Well, the big news this week in sports medicine is that study that came out on Tuesday that said at least 25% of NFL players will end up with CTE, and that's a frightening number, because it's at least. They were able to autopsy like 30% of the players who have died in the last 6 years, ex-NFL players who have died in the last 6 years, and almost all of them, not all of them, almost all of them had CTE. So of the 800 and something who have died in the last 6 years, 25%, at least 25%, have had CTE.
So let me ask you about that study. It is a very frightening number, 1 in 4.
So probably more, but
the question I guess I have is, that study was based off of people who played in the NFL from what period?
Whoever played in the NFL. It was people. It was 800 and something ex-NFL players died in that 6-year period. They autopsied the brains of about 300 of them.
So the rules on targeting and some of the rules and some of the changes that they've made in the NFL, do you think that's maybe reduced the possibility amongst current NFL players, or do you not feel that it's made enough of a?
I don't think it's made enough of a difference, because a large number of the ex-players they autopsied were relatively young guys.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's I saw the article and I thought, well, okay, but just thinking about, they've made some changes. They've tried to make some adjustments. Was that helpful? And you're saying you don't think so?
So far, it is not. The key to reducing the chance of CTE is to not hit your head. It's a dose-related situation where the more you hit your head, the more likely you are to get CTE. The longer you play football the way it's being played now, the more likely you are to get CTE. Now, having said that, football is not alone in this. You're just as likely to get CTE if you're a soccer player, and you're probably just as likely to get CTE if you play rugby or hockey.
Yeah, I mean, there are some other sports that are pretty violent when it comes to getting hit in the head. In fact, we had a caller this morning, and of course I have mentioned that I follow the WNBA, and some of the hits. I'm trying to think of who it was that hit her head on the floor the other night in a Fever game, and I just can't remember who it was now. But she took a pretty hard hit,
right?
And again, CTE basically is brought on from those hard hits to the head that scramble the brain.
It's multiple hits, though. It isn't just one hard hit. It's the multiple hits every day that happen in football practice, hockey practice.
But you watch basketball these days, and
they don't take the number of hits to the head.
They don't take the number of hits, but you do see people some pretty hard hits, and I mean, you take I think it was Kelsey Mitchell actually, and Kelsey Mitchell has hit the floor, at least 2 or 3 times this year and hit pretty hard.
And when they get hit like that, and it actually causes concussion, that you end up with a separate set of issues. Concussion has its own issues. If you ignore concussion and keep playing, you're more likely to get another one. And if you keep playing, it's going to take you much longer to recover. And you can have post-concussion syndrome, which is a completely separate set of circumstances from risking CTE. You don't want post-concussion syndrome with that headache and dizziness and that fog that just won't go away.
Yeah, I mean, it's a scary study. I guess, a lot of people look at it. I have a chance to play in the NFL. I'm playing. I have this chance to make an immense amount of money, and the risk 1 in 4. Well, okay, I'll be in that 75% that doesn't that doesn't have the exposure. But it's pretty scary because if somebody said you had a 1 in 4 chance of getting in an accident that could permanently impair you, you wouldn't drive a car.
Exactly.
And so this is really a scary situation. And as you said, it's not only impacting football, but it's impacting other sports as well.
The degenerative brain disease rate among professional soccer players is exactly the same as the rate among NFL football players. Actually, it's probably a shade higher. Of course, the solution in soccer is much simpler. Just eliminate heading. To eliminate head contact in football is much more difficult because the way football is played, the head gets in the way, quite literally.
So, John, I had somebody ask me this, and I just remembered the question. We talked a couple months back about CTE, and they said, is there any danger to CTE or brain damage from driving a piece of equipment that regularly, vibrates and shakes the daylights out of you?
I don't know.
They asked the question, and I forgot all about it, and they probably have moved on and said, I won't listen to Tom anymore because he never asked my question. But they said that they actually have to operate a piece of equipment, and they said, you literally, you're shaking, and you're on this piece of equipment for, literally hours at a time.
It's a good question. But I don't know. I do know that if you're in the military, you have a higher chance of getting CTE.
Because of the different concussions,
exposure to explosions. Yeah.
Wow. Again, it's a scary situation, and there's no easy fix to this one.
The unfortunate thing is, and I'll be writing about it in my column that will come out on Tuesday, but the number of journalists since this study came out where their solution is, and they're asking, why aren't these players wearing Guardian caps in games?
Oh, here we go again.
And the reason is the players know they don't work.
Yeah. So again, it's a choice, I guess, that people have to make. I mean, you look at it and you say, okay, well, the fame and fortune is more alluring than one's health, but at the same time, you're talking about a lifetime of problems.
Well, I think Roger Craig, who went in the Pro Football Hall of Fame a couple of weeks ago, really encapsulated it when he revealed during his acceptance speech that he had to do on video, even though he pre-recorded, even though he was present. He had to pre-record it so he could get through it because he has dementia. And he said that he's pretty sure, I can guarantee you it's not pretty sure, it's fact, that football caused his dementia. But he also said, football gave me everything that I have until this time in my life, good and bad. It made me the person I am. It gave me the life that it gave me. He's enjoyed a very prosperous life since he retired from the NFL. And if he had to do it all over again, he probably would still play football.
I want to move on to a comment actually Walt made this morning. Walt, regular caller, he'd mentioned that he saw an interview with Pat Boone, who's 92, and said, wow, I mean, the guy just looks great and, so elusive and so, and I said, well, Walt, you're doing pretty well yourself. And Walt mentioned his age. And it seems like there are a lot of people out there that when it comes to dementia, when it comes to Alzheimer's, when it comes to those kinds of things, they buck the trend, they buck the system. And I know there are huge amounts of studies on the causes of dementia, the causes of Alzheimer's. But are there studies looking at, for example, I was thinking about this morning when Walt called in, are there studies of looking at somebody like Walt or the guy that I usher with who's 92 or Pat Boone, because they're bucking the trend on everything. Does medicine ever do studies on why people are doing so well? There are certain people that are doing so well, and they kind of buck all the trends and the data that says, well, don't drink this and don't eat that, and yet they're doing it, and they're in such great shape.
There's two reasons why people get to old age and avoid dementia. One is genetics, and the second reason is environment and the environment they put themselves in. So genetics will carry you half the distance. The other half of the distance is eating right and exercising regularly. If you strength train and you do aerobic exercise on a regular basis, you put off the dementia you would have got genetically by at least 7 years. So the dementia that you would have developed, you may pass away from something else before the dementia that you should have got 7 years earlier manifests itself. So living right is half the battle, and genetics is the other half of the battle.
Is there also truth to, I take a person like Walt. Walt reads regularly.
Absolutely.
Keeping current on, data and information and keeping engaged, I would think has a positive.
You took the words right out of my mouth. I was going to say socially engaged. If you remain socially engaged with friends and family, as opposed to being isolated, you put off dementia. No question about it. The data on that is very clear.
So we've got two text messages, both questions for you. It says, John, is there any thought of what's your thought about colleges dipping into the eligible NFL players to play college football?
Well, I think for once, the Big Ten, the Southeast Conference, and I believe the ACC and the Big 12 were considering it. I think they're making decisions today. For once, they're making the right decision. And once you go to the NFL, God bless you, you can't come back to college.
So it's a one-way trip.
It should be, and it should be a one-way trip. Now, if you declare for the draft and back out at the last second, that's fine too. You haven't gone and played in the pros yet. But once you've gone to play in the pros, it's time to move on.
And then the other one is basically it says John's thought on endometriosis.
Endometriosis. Yes. Kind of a out of left field question, but now, it's a serious issue for women, and best managed by your obstetrician gynecologist. But beyond that, I don't have a lot to say about it.
I think though that this issue of as you get older, there are, for example, and I have it on my phone. I can't even remember the name of it, but there are these little puzzles now that pop up, and they say that you ought to play these at night before you go to bed. Basically, it just helps you basically kind of have a clear mind and challenges your mind.
Anything that challenges your brain and engages your brain will maximize your brain's abilities. I think everybody knows we don't use a whole lot of our brain. So if you exercise your brain and you use more and more of it, even if in the background things are starting in your brain that will lead to dementia, again you're putting off the dementia actually showing its face.
So that's a point that I haven't thought about in a long time, but I've heard it before, which is we don't use the majority of our brain. We really use only a small portion.
That's right.
And so Your point is if you're activating, if you're pushing your brain to work, basically,
and using more of it,
you're using more of it
right?
Than the impact.
You're actually building up a bank.
Yeah.
I make the same analogy with bone. It is particularly young women, but even young men. The more you build up bone strength as a teenager and a young adult, the longer you put off osteoporosis.
Yeah, no doubt about that. And I don't go as often as I should, but I go to the Y fairly regularly. I do ride a bike, quite a bit. And that exercise, as I get older, I notice that when I've done some exercise, I feel a whole lot better than I do when I haven't exercised. I'm a lot less lethargic.
If I exercise first thing in the morning, the day goes great. If I don't exercise first thing in the morning, I'm dragging all day, and then I force myself to exercise after work, and then I feel even worse. The best way for me to start the day is exercise first thing in the morning.
Yeah, and
because then I feel like the Energizer Bunny. I can just keep going all day.
And it doesn't take a lot. I mean, it's not
half an hour to 45 minutes.
Right. You don't have to spend the whole day exercising.
No, you do not.
But you need to get out there. One of the things that I often wonder is you see so many people with dogs, okay? And you see Donna and I, we walk our dogs every night.
Another preventative for dementia.
Is to be out there walking your dog and
having
also having a pet because you interact with the pet.
Right.
I mean, the pets are pretty needy. Yesterday was National Dog Day. Trucker Mike pointed that out, and I ended up posting on Facebook, like a lot of people, photos of my dogs. But the fact is that dogs are fairly needy. They remind you. I mean, there are plenty of little videos out there on Facebook right now that shows how a dog can tell time. If you're 2 minutes off, and it's funny with our dogs, if 5 o'clock rolls around and Donna doesn't have their dinner out, they start looking at us like, what's wrong?
What's going on?
What's going on? It's 5 o'clock. It's 5:05, and it's almost like they're going to tell you, look at your watch, look at the time. It's you're 5 minutes late. They know what time it is, but that also creates a need and a responsibility and a reaction.
Yeah,
and that's all important.
Again, the word you used, engaged. It keeps you engaged. You have this commitment, this duty to take care of the dog. It gives you a purpose, not your only purpose, but a purpose. And things like that are great for overall mental health.
And I've been told this by a number of veterinarians that walking a dog is not only good for the dog because but it's good for you. Absolutely. It gets you out there. Yeah. It gets you some exercise, and it's great for your dog because whether your dog sees other people or sees other dogs, it basically it's exposed to a whole new environment. It's smelling. It's basically
smelling is one of the most important things for a dog on a daily basis.
Right, and so it's
how they engage their brain.
Right, and so you're challenging the dog as well, and it again, it's just wonderful. But there's so many easy ways for people to exercise. I told you this story. My mom's been passed 19 years ago, but she used to take the farthest parking spot in every parking lot.
Right.
And there was a police officer that I knew real well from Munster who said to me one time, called me and said, "Hey, Tom, I drove by Target this morning, and your mom, I know it was your mom. I happen to know what car she drives. She goes out to Target all the time, and it's snowy, and it's cold and windy, and she's parking all the way out by Calumet. Is everything okay?" And I said, "That's
actually
the way."
That's exactly. It is okay.
Yeah, I mean that's why she does that. And he was concerned because he's like, he says, I looped around, I saw her going in the store, and I thought, is there something wrong with her car? Why is she parked all the way out there? And I spoke to my mom, and she said, listen, she said, when I go to Strax, when I go to Target, when I go to Myers, she said, I always take the farthest spot, because it forces me to have to walk to the store and walk out of the store, and it gives me that added exercise.
Unless the weather's bad, I do the same thing.
Yeah, she did it. She did it in all sorts of weather. But again, there's little things you can do. It doesn't, you don't have to. Again, you don't have to have a formal regimen, if you will, as long as you're consistent and you're doing something. The problem is that too many people they become captains of the lazy boy,
Right.
and they sit there all day, and that's not enough. You need to have exercise.
Exercise, 50% of all of your health will come from exercise, whether it's mental health, physical health.
We're gonna pick on Adriana over there, who is basically the picture of health. Okay, she's in wonderful physical shape, but she's been athletic her entire life, and so now you're 20-some years old, okay, and you're not doing all the things that you used to do, and so some advice too, because her age group. Basically, there's a wall that they hit. Not Adriana. You can tell Adriana's still. She's still.
We're trying,
But there's what advice for somebody in her age group as well?
Well, people in their early 20s, even into their mid 30s, again, how important exercise is to your long-term bone health, particularly a young woman. Make sure that you have an adequate supply of calcium in your diet, however you get your calcium, be from milk, yogurt. There's vegetables with calcium. But make sure you are building or maintaining bone strength, because sooner or later, women start making withdrawals from that bone bank because of menopause. The bigger the bone bank, the more you can withdraw and not risk osteoporosis. So that's one thing for women. For adults in general, getting in an exercise habit when you're young carries over into older age. Trying to start an exercise habit when you're middle-aged to older, it can be done, but it's more difficult. If you get in that habit as a young adult, you will maintain it as an older adult.
And there's a challenge too to athletes. So she was an athlete. I've talked about my son before, who went through a huge transformation. I mean, people see him, they're like, "Wow, Tom, you're skinny." It's like, well, he's not. He's slimmed down dramatically from his football time, where he was putting a lot of weight on. But it's hard for a lot of athletes. Okay, after you're not going to practice every day, after you're not competing all the time. And they get into their 20s, there are a lot of athletes who just assume that, well, I'm physically fit and I'm going to stay that way. And that's not the case.
No, it's not. Fortunately, most athletes, as I said, they are in the habit of working out. They tend to stick with that habit. Their biggest issue is, for a lot of athletes that were prominent, played at elite levels, their issue quite often is loss of identity once their athletic career is over. All of a sudden, their primary thing is no longer being an athlete, and they some of them have difficulty finding a new identity.
Yeah, it's it's sad. You think of even NFL players who they were popular when they played, and then they're no longer relevant, and they go downhill in part because they're not the focus of attention. They're not there. There's not that regimen to follow, and it basically has a pretty significant impact on them.
Anybody that's an athlete that's playing at the collegiate or the professional level, a book I recommend for them is called The End of Autumn, and it was written by Mike Oriard, who was the center for Joe Theismann at Notre Dame, and then he went on to play for the Kansas City Chiefs, and he played briefly in the CFL when his Chiefs career was over. But he was an English major at Notre Dame. He went on to become an English professor at Oregon State, and now he recently retired. He's still professor emeritus at Oregon State. But if you can find it, The End of Autumn by Mike Oriard, really is a great blueprint for athletes to transition from full-time athlete to a life after professional or major college sports.
At The End of Autumn, and before we end,
you can find it on Amazon.
And before we end, I've got to ask you, what do you think about Notre Dame as far as their season? Notre Dame fan.
They are set up to have an outstanding season. They have the right pieces in place, both personnel, coaching, and schedule. I'll grant you, their schedule isn't as tough as it usually is. On the other hand, they do have 3 tough games with Miami of Florida, BYU, and SMU. So 3 top 25 teams. Navy's always a challenge. Navy's up right outside the top 25. And, of course, teams like Wisconsin, their opening game up in Green Bay, a team like Wisconsin can make their season by gunning for them. So
it's always a problem with them. They have a they have a great schedule, but there's always that team that they don't expect. The Marshall upset. The Marshall upset.
That's been Freeman's issue since he became the head coach. He's got to get past that whole situation with the team that they're looking past early in the season.
I think we've got another question over here, a comment.
I do have a comment. As soon as we start talking about Notre Dame football, show's over. So you know.
I will be going to the Notre Dame Purdue game, Jed. So
yes.
It's at Notre Dame.
No, it's at Purdue.
It's at Purdue this year. It's next year, right?
It's this year.
It's this year?
It's this year.
Yeah.
I was looking at the IU schedule. Just so you know.
Wait a minute. You weren't even looking at the right schedule?
No, listen.
What kind of fan? Never mind.
We used to get 50 tickets, right? And then we got 16 when Signetti was coming. Then we got 8 after his first year. And now I've got 4. Okay.
Oh, yeah, the price.
They're spoken for.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I am getting calls from cousins I haven't heard from in 10 years.
For
IU
tickets.
And
speaking of IU, why did IU drop Notre Dame from their schedule?
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense.
Here's the thing.
In fact, they've dropped all Power 4 schools from their
So what happens is
non-conference schedule.
In the state of Indiana, we're pretty grounded people. That's the people who come out of Purdue are the number one employable person, like Adriana and like everybody else, because around America they are ranked highest at working the hardest, having a grounded, family-oriented moral and belief system. Okay, and we just know who we are. We're just middle of the country good people. And then you have this one little enclave near Michigan where they think they're better than everybody else in Indiana. And
I'm going to remind you, you're talking about your niece now.
I am talking about my niece,
okay.
My godchild, and
there you go.
the love of my life. But here's the thing. She kind of stumbled, and it was COVID, so I'm glad, whatever, it was close. But there is a palpable arrogance to Notre Dame.
I agree.
That is, hey, Biff, hey, Woody, hey, Chip. And it's just awful when you go. I mean, I went to her graduation, and I went to all the grotto and the whole thing, all right? And I tried to, enjoy myself, and I did enjoy.
And you should have enjoyed
And
yourself.
I enjoyed myself immensely. Everybody did. I was the photographer. I brought my good camera. And the whole time I was thinking that, the rest of the state of Indiana really kind of despises you.
I disagree with that.
Well,
nobody
asked you. You're from Notre Dame. You got the blinders on.
I'm a Notre Dame fan.
You got the blinders on.
I'm a Notre Dame fan, but I'm a Purdue grad. And I don't totally disagree with what Jed said. Okay, I think there's.
That's why Indiana's not playing them.
I think they're.
Purdue plays them.
Well, they just want to beat them one every 10 years.
Yeah, about every 10 years. Yeah, which is about right. But
Michigan plays us.
Well, Michigan has its own problems.
Go ahead, finish your thought.
No. Go ahead.
So here's the deal: you could almost get away with it because of the tradition of Purdue and Indiana, and the deep dislike between the two schools. When it used to be closer in competition, now it's not even a game. It's done by halftime. Last time I went to a Purdue Notre Dame game, 66-0.
Yeah.
It was all excited. I was gone by halftime. Me and my dad walking out together. It was one of the sadder sports moments of my life, especially after Purdue had gone to the Final Four in basketball. And that was, oh, man, we're going to be good in sports now. No, we're not. Our football sucks. But you get down to Indiana, and they don't have that tradition. and they don't really care about Notre Dame, and the mystique of Notre Dame just isn't,
it diminishes down there.
Diminishes down there, and to some extent they kind of dismiss.
Who was the last team to beat Indiana
in football?
Yeah,
I don't know.
Notre Dame.
The year before? Oh, in the playoffs. You're right.
Yeah, that's right.
That was another one.
Yeah,
that's right.
And not only did we beat them, we roasted them.
They weren't ready yet.
No,
the chicken wasn't ready yet, but
they were.
You ask
year.
why they're not playing Notre Dame, and that's why.
Yeah,
I mean, I would love to see them.
They don't want to get roasted.
I would like to see them play Notre Dame instead of Howard or North Texas.
Exactly.
But I'll tell you what,
they dropped Notre Dame, they dropped Louisville, they've dropped every Power 4 school from their non-conference schedule.
So my sister takes the Ohio State tickets when they come around.
Sure.
Took 4 of them, right? You know what the cheapest Ohio State ticket is right now? The cheapest in the corner nosebleed for
$500.
$505.
Yeah.
Wow.
If you want to sit anywhere near the field, it starts at $1,500.
Yeah. New day in Bloomington.
What is going on?
Well, they used to give away the tickets.
They did. They gave me a stack.
Right, they couldn't get people in there.
I gave Mike Suggs a stack of 50 tickets once to take like the Boys and Girls Club out of Gary. It was easy. They just went down. They opened. The kids ran around. They had a whole section to run around. They were throwing the football around in the stadium.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Can you imagine that now?
No.
You know what they're going to do next? They're going to do like Notre Dame. You know where they used to have, I think it was 18 across, and now it's like 22. You sit down, and your butt, if it spreads at all, is going to be on somebody else's lap.
Yeah, I agree with you. It is amazing that IU all of a sudden talks football, which is pretty hard to believe.
It's a credit to Coach Signetti, no doubt
it is. It is. And as long as they have Signetti, they've got a program. They lose Signetti, the program goes.
Yeah.
So, hey, thanks so much.
Yeah, I got to get run.
Thanks so much, John. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
When we come back, we're going to finish out the morning call right here on WJOB 1230 AM 104.7 FM. We'll be right back.
I'm Pastor Eric Boone, pastor of the Trail Life Church here in the great city of Gary, Indiana. The Notre Dame Credit Union. Go beyond and above to make sure that we are in position to make that greater impact. Listen, this credit union is one of a kind, and I'm looking forward to the future because I know that we will continue to do greater things together, and I'm forever grateful for a credit union like this.
Visit NotreDameFCU.com.
Plumbers Local 210 is building the future, and we're looking for service plumbers to join our team. Our training center invests nearly $500,000 every year to make sure our members are the best in the industry. From a 5-year apprenticeship and an associate degree at Ivy Tech to ongoing certifications in safety and new technology, our plumbers are trained for excellence. Every member is drug tested and licensed for your safety and peace of mind. When you need plumbing work done, make sure you ask for the license. It's your right to ask.
We've had some cars run into the barrier wall, not paying attention. They were on their phone.
Texting, scrolling. Yeah, it's bad. Most often they be on their phones or they're just not paying attention. They can cause a crash.
We could stand on the side of the road and watch every other vehicle looking down into their lap as they're passing us. You know what they're looking at. They're looking at their phone.
Phones. On their phones, not paying attention.
Phones. I'm not a mathematician, but I say probably about 80% of the people who pass me are on their telephones.
No call, text, or video is worth putting yourself or a road worker in danger. When driving through construction, LIUNA members ask you for your sake and ours.
Slow down. Stay off your phone, please. Be aware where we're at, where the cone zones are at.
Stay off your phones and buckle up and drive safe.
We're not asking for much.
This is Brian Short, business manager for the Indiana Laborers District Council. Everyone deserves a safe place to work. Do your part in the cone zone. Slow down, save a life. We're all in this together.
A message from Laborers International Union of North America and affiliated locals.
Have you ever considered becoming an iron worker? Local 395 is now accepting applications for their apprenticeship program. Go to ironworkers395.com. Look under the training section, click on apprenticeship, and scroll down to the application. You must be 18 years old, have a high school diploma or GED, and you must be physically able to perform the work of the trade. Find out more by calling the apprenticeship school in Lake Station at 219-962-7675 or visit ironworkers395.com.
All right, we're back, and we've got about 20 minutes if you want to give us a call, 845-1100. Did want to give you an update on 8094. Looks like the accident that was westbound has been cleared completely, and traffic is flowing fine. Going eastbound, I think it's just the delays that were built up earlier in the morning because it's still showing some delay on 8094 all the way back almost to 394. So you're going to have slow going until you get to Broadway this morning. Again, there's really no rhyme or reason, but it's out there nonetheless. Be careful. Again, if you're going into the city, you want to avoid the Bishop Ford this morning and the Dan Ryan because the Bishop Ford is backed up all the way to about 130th, and then it's just a solid parking lot all the way into downtown, into the Circle. Not a good day for that trip. There is some congestion now on Lakeshore Drive as well. So my suggestion is this, is if you're already on the Ryan or the Bishop Ford, get off and use State Street. State Street seems to be moving pretty decently. Talking about a lot of things this morning, and again, still hard for me to believe that at the height of this, the result of the storm, NIPCO was out there basically petitioning the IURC for rate increases. And part of me says, well, okay, it was already in the funnel. It was already in the process. George pointed that out. I think that, they do this constantly. But when your president gets out and says repeatedly, all hands on deck, everybody at NIPSCO is focused on, our customers that are without power. Everybody is doing everything they can. That should mean everyone. And if nothing else, you hold off on these kinds of petitions. You could have held off. It probably would have been a lot more palatable. Look, I'm a realist. I know that doesn't always exist. When somebody says all hands on deck, they don't really mean all hands on deck. But from a PR point, somebody at NIPSCO really dropped the ball that you guys were so callous and so uncaring that you're filing for rate increases at the height of the recovery from that storm. Just unbelievable. 845-1100 is the number to call. I just can't fathom how anybody could be, as a company, that irresponsible. You would think that somebody would have said, it's got to change. And I want to bring up a series of texts that I got this morning from a individual who brought up a situation involving Mayor Melton. So, basically, if you read what he's saying, there is basically Mayor Melton, when he was a senator, entered present at a roll call vote. This was the vote to allow utilities to have endless requests for funds. Senator Melton, who was also a NIPSCO employee at the time, walked out. He had three choices, yes, no, or to abstain. He chose to walk out on the people in Northwest Indiana. He compromised his position and needs to go. It's a smoking gun for then Senator Melton. And it says, he walked out before the tracker vote. He was protecting himself in NIPSCO. Facts are facts, but, unfortunately, it needs to be investigated. And I agree. I mean, I don't understand how Mayor Melton can go on another station and claim racism when it comes to Gary, when he used to work for NIPSCO and he was part of their community and government affairs operations, as were others. And now they're saying NIPSCO is racist in their treatment of the people of Gary and getting the power turned back on. What happened all of a sudden? Because you weren't there, they became racist? I don't buy that. You put a lot of people in there. You have a chief of staff or chief operating officer, or whatever you're calling him, who was in charge basically of DEI hires. So you brag that you brought about all these changes, and then you're vilifying those changes and those people, because now you're saying, well, the problem is they're racist. But how was that when you had a hand in basically appointing those people that are now there that dropped the ball on the crisis? Again, when you look at what was done and what wasn't done when it comes to NIPSCO, they haven't maintained their system in years. They talk a good game. Oh, we're here to help. Oh, by the way, I love the fact that NIPCO also did a mailing, and Adriana, I don't know if you got it at your household, but there was a mailing that went out last week. Basically, it's called NIPCO Cares, and it says, that the next time there's a crisis, are you prepared? And NIPCO is here to help you. They will respond if you have, problems with your appliances and the wiring in your house in a disaster. They'll be there to help you. And it's like, are you kidding me? They're not going to show up and help you because they're too busy trying to figure out the spaghetti wire mess that they have when it comes to utility poles. And then they want you to give money to them, basically as a hedge against a disaster. The last company that I would give money to protect me from a future disaster would be NIPCO, given the fact that they can't handle what they have.
Well, that, and also in the letter, it said, what was the first part of the letter that you had said? That NIPCO will provide. NIPCO will be there to prevent problems and outages, and they'll take care of your appliances. Or they're telling the people, it's like, you can prevent this. NIPCO, you could have prevented this.
Right, you could have
done it, but you didn't. And the rate increases has definitely, everybody has been affected by it, and for the prices to go up and up and up and up, it makes people wonder, it's like, okay, so I can't have, the way of life has to change, and some people may be out there, it's like, okay, well, just don't leave a light on at night in your house, unplug this, unplug that. That can only go so far.
Yeah, well, remember,
because then your rates are going to increase regardless if you unplug all of your appliances. Don't leave a certain light on how you usually do in your everyday life.
Well, you're a little young to remember this, but you probably do. When we switched from incandescent lights to LED lights, right? And Barack Obama said, well, we do this, we're going to save a lot of energy and we're going to reduce the cost of energy. Okay, well, everybody and their brother changed out to LEDs. Okay, you can't even find incandescent light bulbs anymore. You really have to look for them.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody did that, and it reduced our energy consumption, but it sure didn't reduce our energy costs.
Yeah.
And it's like a lot of things. We say, oh well, if we do this, it's going to make life better, and it's going to make it for a better planet and all this stuff. And we didn't get any positive result for doing any of the things that we've been told to do. We built 1,200 windmills in northern Indiana. You see them every time you drive down I-65 or you drive down US 41. There's all those windmills, and they were supposed to basically it's clean energy, limited impact on the environment, and on and on. And they put up all these windmills, and now they're replacing the windmills. You see the blades all over the place down there. The blades themselves are made of composite material. They're not made in the United States. They're made overseas. It didn't help out the steel making industry in northwest Indiana. They basically don't produce the power that they thought they would. I mean, when Donald Trump does his jokes about, hey, what's on TV tonight? I don't know. It won't matter because we can't plug the TV in because the windmill stopped. He's right about that. I mean, they proved to be far more inefficient than we thought. And again, it's just like the big scam. It's like the continuing scam that as Americans, we're told one thing and then the result is totally another. We've got some callers. Good morning. You're on the air. Good morning.
Yeah, Melton and Obama. They're Melton and Obama. There are a whole bunch of other double talkers. For example, the issue involving data centers. There was an article in the Chicago Tribune, I think yesterday, and one of the things the advocates for the data centers like to say is it's going to bring a lot of taxes to government. It's going to provide all kinds of jobs. And in the article in the Chicago Tribune, they noted that the data centers around O'Hare, that they have been given a tax relief of $100 million. Gee, I thought they were supposed to pay a lot of taxes to government, and government's handing out those kind of goodies. It makes no sense, does it?
Well, again, it's a shell game. So they tell you, oh, the benefit of bringing in this development is, A, B, and C, but then they don't tell you that they're also going to get these huge tax breaks. And it's mind-boggling. Walt, I mean, look, 10 years ago, we were all told, change out to LEDs. You're going to save money. You're going to reduce energy consumption. I mean, we're going to do all those things, and none of it happened. None of it happened. So, it's just again, we're fed all kinds of baloney all the time. You've got Eddie Melton, who's the mayor of Gary, who talked a totally different game when he was at NIPSCO, and it appears, based on some text messages that I've got, and there may be some newspaper editorials looking into it now. Where, he basically, sat on the sidelines and didn't represent the people in Northwest Indiana. He represented his employer instead. They claim that, okay, we brought about DEI. We brought about change to NIPSCO, made it more representative in its employees and its commitment to the community. And then you turn around and scream racism. It's like, how'd you do that one? How did you do that? If you were in charge of DEI or you were in charge of community affairs and government relations, and then, you find out that the reason why the power went out and has been out is because you never bothered to trim the trees and maintain your lines, and then you're trying to blame somebody else and you're blaming racism. How could you do that when you're the people that were in charge of those very systems that failed? Doesn't make sense.
Mr. Melton ought to be asked this question: how is if America is such a racist society, why is it when Biden opened our southern borders and we got 10 to 15 million, probably even, I suspect it's even more than that, most of the people that I saw were persons of color? I thought America was so racist. Why would people go halfway around the world, pay huge sums to be guided there, go through dangerous lands and so forth, to come to America? Because if it's such a racist society, somebody ought to ask Gary Melton that question. Where does he stand on that? How could he explain that if he wants to continue to racemonger as he does?
It's disappointing.
I'd be interested in hearing his explanation.
It's disappointing, and it's hypocritical to claim again that the reason why NIPSCO didn't restore Gary was because it was racist, when you and your chief of staff were in senior positions, basically in community and government affairs. And you can't tell me that Eddie Melton didn't come home at night from NIPSCO and say, hey man, look at those wires in the alley. Look at these old poles. Boy, we ought to get out there and replace this stuff. All right. I mean, you worked for NIPSCO all those years. Didn't you look at your own neighborhood? I just find that hard to believe. I mean, you were in charge of DEI, and now you're the chief of operations of the city of Gary, and you're saying, well, it's racism. But you said that one of your accomplishments was you hired all these new employees at NIPSCO. So which is it? I mean, how do you make one claim out of one side of your mouth and then make another claim out of the other side of your mouth? I mean, it's contradictory. It just is. It's like my problem with the stolen mail, and Adam Mildred. Okay, that's his name. He's the U.S. attorney. I haven't heard from anybody on his staff. Yesterday, after I left here, I called them again. I left yet another message. That was message 7 or 8. And then I dropped my phone and I dialed somehow an extension. So I get this woman and she says, yes, I'm with the U.S. Attorney's Office, but I'm not who you're looking for. But I will make sure that I personally deliver the message that you have a concern and that there's this case. And she said, can you tell me how much loss you think there is? And I said, well, based on the posts on Facebook, I'd say it's several $100,000. And she said, that's something we definitely would be interested in. Someone will call you. Really? Because nobody has called me. No one. No one's bothered to call. So, again, the U.S. Attorney's Office gives a big spiel about how they're there to protect us. And, a bunch of old guys get together and gamble and sell squares for the Super Bowl out of Geno's Steakhouse, and that's a crime. But you've got somebody stealing hundreds of thousands of dollars out of the Whiting Post Office, and nobody gives a rat's back end. And here's a text. Again, yes, somebody texted and said, wasn't Melton's job to be a lobbyist for NIPCO? Also, isn't it similar to what Bill Cosby did? He spent all those years making money for Coca-Cola, and as soon as they didn't renew his contract, he said everybody should boycott Coca-Cola because they didn't have enough minorities on their board of directors. Again, I don't know all the details on Bill Cosby, but I know that Eddie Melton basically is claiming it's racism because his city didn't get reconnected, and he was part of the problem. So I'm sorry, but that just doesn't sit well with me. I mean, if you worked for NIPCO all those years and you were their representative, you were in senior management, you tout how that was one of the reasons why you ought to run for mayor. Okay, why you should be elected for as mayor, because you were part of the fact that or you were part of the organization that basically created all these problems now. How is it that you can go and blame them? You were on the inside and you didn't do anything. And there's plenty of others over there that again need to be responsible. And yet they ran for office and they hold office because they say, I'm so qualified because, I worked for NIPCO. And NIPCO, we find out, was a paper tiger. It was just a huge mistake, poorly run organization. And I'm not picking on the men and women who work the front lines, who handle the phones and handle the complaints and handle the repairs and those kinds of things. They're doing the best they can. But the people in senior executive management all ought to be thrown out.
I think it was interesting that Uncle Ron called in first thing this morning, wanting to organize a bus down to Indianapolis. I think that the usual race mongers really got slapped down when they start peddling this racial line. And I think what Uncle Ron was looking for was to get people other than persons of color on his bus to go on down to Indianapolis, so it's not seen as a racial thing.
I will say I give Ron Matlock a lot of credit for calling in and saying, look, we can't let this happen, okay? And so I think in Ron's case, he's looking at it saying this is not right. He was pretty forthright yesterday when he said, people are claiming it's racism because they're sitting with the lights out and they don't know what the real cause is. So he didn't blame racism for the power outage. I give Ron some credit. He was pretty straightforward, Walt, on his views. I think that he's right on target though when he says, we've got to oppose the rate increases, and he's right. We do. We can't just sit back and let NIPCO win another one. We've got to address it. So. He's right about that. Hey, Walt, you are the last caller of the day and the last caller of the week for me, because we have gotten to the end of the morning call, day 2 on WJOB. And folks, again, every other week through the rest of the year at least, we're going to be doing 2 for weeks with the morning call. So we'll do every Wednesday and every other Thursday. So I'll be back here next Wednesday morning beginning at 6 a.m., and we'll have another edition of the morning call on Wednesday, and then the following week we'll do Wednesday and Thursday again. So keep it tuned right here all day, all week to WJOB 1230 AM, 104.7 FM. It's always an honor and a pleasure to take your calls and to be with you. I look forward to being back next Wednesday. Take care. Have a great weekend.
Tech Credit Union supports the essential role of union labor in building strong communities. That's why we offer hassle-free banking, financial empowerment, and a commitment to your success. Save for the future, handle life's challenges, and trust a partner that stands by hardworking union members.